Hello and welcome to our first deep dive into the Canadian National Hockey League teams. Today's video, we're going to focus first on the Vancouver Canucks and then on the Winnipeg Jets. This will be one of two midweek episodes. Next episode we're going to post will be of Edmonton and Calgary. So let's start off with the Vancouver Canucks. Earlier in our podcast episode, we mentioned that we thought Vancouver would finish in third. I'm looking at dailyfaceoff.com and their projected lines currently. First line of Niels Holander, Elias Patterson, and Brock Besser on the right. Connor Garland with JT Miller and Vasily Podkolzin. Third line of Tanner Pearson, Bo Horvat, and Zach McEwen. And then fourth line of Tyler Mott, Brandon Sutter, Jason Dickinson. I don't see half of this to be true, to be completely honest with you. JT Miller is a really good winger. He's not necessarily a center. Bo Horvat moves from third line to second line center, and they can move some things around. Brandon Sutter is a third line center on that team anyway. So,
but I can see these lines as just players that are going to be on the starting lineup. I guess if they're not going to be, I guess in that order.
Yeah.
But
so looking at their forward group, I do think they have a pretty solid forward group. There's a huge asterisk in that forward group, though, and that's Elias Patterson.
Yes.
He has yet to sign, as of the moment of this recording, he has yet to sign a contract for this upcoming season. He is still an RFA. So I'm looking at a couple comparables here, okay? So Kirill Kaprizov just signed for $9 million a year. I think Elias Patterson is looking for that kind of money. I think this is what's keeping them from signing him now.
I think he might go for if they're going to compare it to Kaprizov, I think he might go for 10.
Yeah, I honestly think he's going to try to go higher.
Yeah.
I honestly think he's trying to go higher.
Because he's definitely better than Kaprizov, so.
And, he plays center, right?
And that's very important, so.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be wanting a little bit more than what Kaprizov is making, so that's going to be tough for Vancouver.
I think so. It's going to be really, really tough for them, for sure. You're looking at the bigger contracts in the NHL. I mean, you have Connor McDavid, Artemi Panarin, Austin Matthews, Erik Karlsson, Leon Draisaitl is up there too.
As bigger ones? No, because Draisaitl isn't he 8.5?
Yeah, he's 8.5. But he's it's still up there. He's in the top 50, I think, in getting paid.
Yeah, but more
yeah.
Karlsson is kind of regressing, I guess, in a way. So,
I think you're absolutely right. I think he goes for a $10 million a year contract.
Yeah.
I think he asks for 10. I think I can see him getting paid 9.25. I think that's where the number ends.
If he's not at 10, I'd probably say 9.5.
Yeah, I think I don't know, man. I do not see anybody worth. He's not worth $10 million. He's a heck of a player, but I don't think he's worth 10.
But it's just like the defense that got paid $9 million, and then everyone else is paying their defense $9 million just to keep them, kind of thing.
That's true. I think he looks at a comparable of Jack Eichel. I think that's whose primary comparison will be, and Jack Eichel signed an 8-year, $10 million a year contract. So I feel that's who's he's looking at to compare. So, anyways, I mean, if Patterson signs before the start of the year and he doesn't miss any games, I think this team has a very strong forward group. I do think that they'll be, again, as I mentioned earlier in our last podcast episode, I do think they finished third.
I can see them finishing third.
And they made a couple big moves this offseason, man. They improved a lot from last year. So I mentioned one of their names, Connor Garland. That's a big name, man. And they had a big trade with the They made a massive trade with the Arizona Coyotes. So they acquired Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Connor Garland, and they gave up Louis Eriksson, a terrible contract, Jay Beagle, another bad contract, and Antoine Roussel, pretty bad contract, and a first, a second, and a seventh. So I gave up a lot for those two. But they gave up a lot of bad contracts in the near future in the hopes of retaining. I think they did it in hopes of being able to pay Patterson and Hughes more money. But also,
that should make sense.
It would make sense. But they also gained a really bad contract in Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Let's not even kid ourselves. So they're a good team. I think they'll do well this year with a forward group. It's a pretty decent forward group, as we mentioned earlier. So So now looking at their defensive core, I think defensively they're pretty decent. I mean, their top pairing of Quinn Hughes and Travis Hamonic. I do not think Travis Hamonic is a top pairing defenseman. He's the best right shot defenseman they would have. Like maybe Tyler Myers would be up there with them. It could be second pairing of Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Tucker Poolman is what they're calling, what Daily Faceoff is calling for right now. And then Oli Uelevi and Tyler Myers is the third pairing. Oli Uelevi, I think, is an underrated player. Oli Uelevi can be a really good third pairing defenseman on the left side for the Canucks. I really do feel that way. It's a pretty strong group. Now, but like the thing with them too is two things, right? One, Quinn Hughes needs to sign a contract. If they don't have Quinn Hughes, this defense is not very strong.
No.
Oliver Ekman-Larsson, I don't think OEL is not a number one defenseman anymore in the NHL. I think he's a very good second pairing, similar to Duncan Keith, but we're going to talk about that later. But like they don't have too much depth. Like after those top six, you have Luke Shen as their number 7, who's like a decent number 7. But then after that, it's like, yeah, man, it's not great. Like I'm not looking at a very strong group here. Like if any of their guys get injured, like they have Madison Bowie, who's pretty decent, but like even then, it's like he's not, as of right now, he's not an NHL defenseman, really. I mean, they have a much stronger center depth right now, honestly. But yeah, like Vancouver, I'm going to stick with it. They finished third. I think it will be a good battle, but this defense is not something that impresses me too much.
I think I'm going to change my answer to probably like third or fourth.
Seattle will challenge them for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Seattle will be a good challenge. Yeah. However, but that's not the strength. I think the strength of this team is, first off, their power play will be pretty elite, just having Patterson and Quinn Hughes if they sign their contracts. But their goalies are pretty strong too, man. They have Thatcher Demko, who I believe solidified himself as the number 1 goalie this last year. And then they bought out
Holtby.
They bought out Holtby, and then they signed Yaroslav Halak. Yaroslav Halak is a very, very, very strong goaltender. He's a very good goaltender. I think he's like one of the better backups in the league who can play starter minutes if needed.
And for 1.5, that's definitely a steal of a deal for Halak.
Jim Benning put his career on the line with these moves this year. I'm not even kidding. He really did. He's like, listen, man, like this is what's going to define me as a general manager this year. Like those were some pretty big moves this year. Like let's not even sugarcoat this. Like that OEL trade, that's huge. And I think the fact that they're bringing in a Swede to play with Pettersson, I think that's another big thing. Like that can't be underrated or understated at all.
According to Puckpedia, though, they do have 12.7 mil left in cap space.
That's not enough to sign Pettersson and Hughes.
No. Yeah, so something's going to happen in order to get those.
Well, like it could also be they move some guys to like LTIR, or it could be other things. Like they'll have to maneuver some stuff around. Yeah. But that's a very good point, actually. That's a very good point. Maybe that's probably why they haven't signed Hughes and because they're both not worth $6 million or less.
No, that's
not even
more.
on bridge deal.
It's definitely more.
And like I hadn't even started talking about Quinn Hughes' contract situation. Like, what do you like? He signs for Makar money, and I think he signs exactly the same contract.
Definitely Makar money for sure.
I think so. Personally, I think Makar is better than Hughes, but yeah,
Hughes
I
is
think
definitely really good too. So
yeah. He signed, 6 years, $54 million? I do think Makar took a little bit of a discount, if you're going to be honest.
But he's on a really, really good
he
Colorado
got 90,
team. So
and he's $9 million a year.
Wants to win.
Yeah. Patterson did actually mention earlier this year that he doesn't know if he did. I'm obviously paraphrasing, but he doesn't know if he's going to stay there.
In Vancouver?
Yeah. He's like, I don't want to sign a contract and not like the team. Like, I want to win. Yeah, I know. That's pretty nuts. I'll pull the exact quote up in a second here, but yeah. So
then you would think you'd probably sign like a 3-year deal, maybe for like it would have to be less than. Right?
I think it'd be bridge. I think if that, I'm thinking third or fourth in the Pacific. I'm sticking with third. I do think that they signed Hughes, and I do think they sign Patterson. I do think if needed, they have to they'll trade some people away for the contract stuff. Like I think that's enough, but it's going to be
It's going to be tough.
yeah, it's going to be tough. They just don't have their forward depth is decent, but their defense depth no. The goaltending is good, so the goaltending can get them away from almost anything, right?
It'll just be tough.
Yeah. All right, let's look at you're looking at the Winnipeg Jets, eh?
Yes, I am looking at the Winnipeg Jets. And so what they got from this offseason, they brought in Brendan Dillon, Nate Schmidt, Riley Nash, just to name a few. They did lose Jordy Ben, Laurent Brossoit, Derek Forbert, Trevor Lewis, Nate Thompson, and Marco Dano. Really good depth players, but not really missing much. Laurent Brossoit, didn't he go to Vegas, I think?
Yeah, I think Brossoit's back in Vegas now.
Yeah. No, good for him because he's on a good team, but bringing in Dillon and Schmidt definitely helped their defense a little bit. I guess, what did we say? They finished, third?
Yeah, I put them in about third or fourth.
Third, fourth, yeah, in their division. I can see that still, especially with their forward group, the way that they are, especially their top six, with, Connor, Scheifele, Wheeler, Dubois, Ehlers, just to name a few. Definitely strong players in that forward group.
And they're both elite offensive, but also really strong defensive. I think that Dubois trade they made, that was a pretty big trade for them. I mean, they lost one of the better snipers in the league, but I do think they offset that with a really strong center depth.
Yes,
that's can't be understated.
Because they also have Lowry and Nash now for their centers, so definitely with that Dubois trade Laine for Dubois definitely helped with their center depth.
Oh, don't forget Roslovic. Roslovic was a pretty big part of that trade too.
Yes. And then their defense looking like it's Morrissey, Schmidt, Dillon, and Pionk, and then Stanley and DeMello. Still pretty decent defense. Probably the same as they had last year, strength wise, but their strength in their team is definitely Hellebuyck. Hellebuyck will steal you a lot of games because he's that good. And then their offense will definitely help with the likes of Scheifele and Wheeler, like I said before, Ehlers and Connor. Honestly, I would say they would still have a good chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's a strong team. I don't think it's the best in that division. I think they'll be hard pressed to get by Colorado. I'm hoping they finish if they finish fourth, I think they have a better chance of making out of the Pacific than they do in the Central, because I just think that's a stronger division in the Central.
Yeah.
Or a stronger number one team, at least in Colorado. I agree, man. I think their strength of that team is Hellebuyck. Hellebuyck is one of the better goalies, if not one of the better players in the entire league.
Yeah.
When Hellebuyck's at the top of his game, he is unstoppable. Really, he won't let in anything. Really, he's a really solid goaltender. So, who's their backup now? Their backup goalie?
They re-signed Eric Comrie.
Comrie, okay.
So
he's
still a decent backup.
Yeah, he's decent. But I mean, if anything happens to Hellebuyck, that team's done.
Oh yeah, Comrie is a good backup, but yeah, like you said, if Hellebuyck goes down, then it'll be really tough.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, I stick with it. I'm sticking with my projection of them finishing in. I think I said third or fourth.
Yeah.
Around there. I wonder we're 3-3-5, but I do see them as a playoff team. So, yeah, that's a good team.
Yeah, very good team. Very good team.
I mean, they swept the Oilers, so they have to be good.
So they have to be good.
Yeah. Well, they got good experience in the playoffs last year because of that. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Cool. So I think that wraps up the first episode this week of just looking over Vancouver and Winnipeg rosters. They're good teams. Those fan bases should be pretty excited about what they have in the ice in front of them. I'm hoping that the fans are nice about everything. I try to and give some patience, because Winnipeg is Winnipeg is pretty much in a win now state. Let's not even kid ourselves.
Yeah.
Like they don't have like a lot of young guys coming up anymore, anyways. So, and then Vancouver, they've had their mini rebuild, and it's really win now for them as well. So, I think actually all Canadian Western teams are in like the win now stage. So, anyways, tune in to the next episode this week where we'll be talking about the Calgary Flames and then the Edmonton Oilers.